All right, podcast round two. As I am so often want to do, I recorded one about 2 minutes of it, and then I named some of my friends by name, and I thought maybe they don't want that in there. I also thought just the same thing as I always think, which is, who are you? Who do you think you are? Why would anyone want to listen to this? And again, fair question, but we're doing it. Doing this podcast has really made me think about the nature of art and the internet these days. And, you know, and I'll have all these thoughts in my brain. And then when I sit down to actually tell them, I'll have a thought. I'll be like, yeah, that's a good thought. You should have that thought, and you should say that thought into the microphone. And then people are going to be like, whoa, this guy's so deep and smart. And then when I sit down, everything I say sounds stupid. And I think that's kind of a common thing. I mean, obviously starting and quitting a podcast is probably one of the, you know, it's like starting and quitting a garage band when you're in high school from the 70s to the 90s. Now everyone starts and quits a podcast. You know, it's just what you do. And yeah, it's just been making me like reflect on the nature of art these days, because for so long, right? I've been trying to be a stand-up comedian, and again, had you know, I would have career success, I would get momentum, and then I would drink, and you know, who knows if I'd been sober, if anything would have happened or not? Who knows? But it has been a recurring process. And honestly, my thing with stand-up comedy is I've just always wanted to be like a creative person, you know, and obviously that's probably wrapped up in a bit of ego or whatever, and maybe laziness, not wanting to work a real job. I don't know how many people who work just like regular ass jobs are like, yeah, this is sick. I think if you want a family and kids, if that's like your main motivation, then maybe you just work in a regular job. You're like, yeah, this is sick. And honestly, I mean, the older you get, you're like, dude, a regular job with a regular paycheck would be pretty sick. I think most people have a tendency to be envious of what they don't have. And every like professional stand-up comedian knows the downsides of being a professional stand-up comedian, which there's lots, especially for most of them, because it's a hard road. You know, everyone starts out thinking like, oh, I'm going to be famous. I'm going to be hanging out with famous people every night. I'm going to be so rich. That's not the case for most working stand-up comedians. It's a job. It's a job like everything else. Anyways, what the fuck was I talking about? Okay, yeah. Here's what I was talking about is just doing this podcast has, and again, I'm trying to do it in the hopes that it will inspire other people to do other stuff. And again, there is the voice in my head that's like, dude, who cares? What are you doing? Who's even listening to this? You know, and there are apparently some people, so that's cool. I'm trying to build a parasocial relationship with all of you. So if anyone are listening, again, always reach out and be like, hey, I'm in love with you. I want to have your children, or if you're a guy, you know, whatever. I can't imagine anyone listening to this who doesn't have some sort of romantic attraction to me. But that's obviously not true. We can be boys. We can be friends. Anyways, not important. What I'm trying to talk about is, what am I trying to talk about? Yeah, I've been like listening to the podcast, you know, because I listen to every episode, and now talking about listening to the podcast that I'm actively recording is sending me into a weird meta loop where I might disappear inside my own asshole. But anyways, it has, like, just showing up and actually doing this every day has made me reflect on like the nature of creativity, and how a lot of times, like, you know, because I've written screenplays, right, and I've worked on movies that like so far haven't been released, and like doing anything creative, there is just this battle constantly of like, what the hell is the point of this? Why am I doing this? You know, it always starts with motivation, where you're like, yeah, this is so sick. I have an awesome idea. And then you have to take it forward and like bring it into the world. And inevitably, there's going to be a large part of that where you're like, what the hell is this? Why am I doing this? Why did I start? Who do I think I am? You know, and so this, like yesterday, after I recorded an episode, I had a very dark moment. Where, and I don't even know, I think obviously part of it was drinking 2 Red Bulls and then just the post Red Bull crash. But I was like, had some really dark thoughts, you know, some really dark thoughts. But I got over it. and I felt good. And again, a lot of this I think is probably from me. While I've been getting this going, I have not been working my day job, which I don't need to right now because I have money coming in, but it's always good to have more money coming in. And I'm trying to get better at like setting up a schedule and everything. And yeah, like the internet now these days, because I think people from like my generation who were formed, our minds were formed pre-internet. The idea of art was sort of like, it was a much more polished thing, right? Where you'd see a band and you'd see that band play their songs, their hit songs, right? And you would hear the hit song for the first time after it's already been recorded and produced. With art, like with books, you would listen to, or, you know, you'd buy a book and it would be the finished version that's gone through so many versions and it's been edited and everything. And you know, with anything like painting, whatever, you get the point. But now with the internet being what it is like you have to develop a relationship with your fans in the process of releasing your art, if that makes any sense. And I don't even know if you, again, what is art? Is a podcast art? But it is like, it's, everything is disposable in this weird way. And so I'm trying to embrace the disposability of everything through this, through this podcast. I'm trying to, you know, just be like, yeah, for sure, it's disposable. This is what it is. I'm putting this out here and that's fine, you know, because I'm also trying to work through my own hesitation around the internet. Because again, like, even just having, you know, last week having, you know, whatever, a bunch of posts go viral, get 600,000 views. For a while, you're like, oh, it's good, it's happening. But then you're like, it's nothing. It got me 1,000 followers, you know. I'm now at like 5,500, which is about the same as like a medium attractive girl who posts bikini pics semi-regularly, you know. And so it's like, none of this really means anything. But in that, it's like, well, you know, if you're a painter painting a painting, if you were to like show a video of where it is halfway through, what is like, when is art finished? You know, I don't know. Maybe I'm too dumb and not artistic enough to talk about the creative process. But what I'm trying to say is, like, or even with the internet, it's like I used to get very self-conscious. And this is something that I'm always working through with everything, is like self-consciousness around everything, basically. But even like commenting on other people's posts, I'd be like, oh, is that comment good? I don't know. Is that? And then you just realize, you have to realize none of it matters. Like, none of it matters in a way that you could get like existential and dark with. But at the same time, it's like, well, you can get existential and light with. It's like, this is all just play. This is all just fun. And so, yeah, like, and then, you know, my own desire to be a good stand-up is, you know, I'm constantly thinking about, like, the line between narcissism and artistry. Because it's like, how do you know, like, because I have a desire to create something like a great stand-up album, and I get frustrated with where I'm at in my career because, like, I don't think you can really get there. And this is the thing about stand-up, is like, you can't really develop your voice as purely as you wanted to until you have an audience that is coming for what you are providing, you know? And so this is my attempt to do that. And I have no idea how that, you know, how it's going to work. But I do know that just showing up and every day and doing this is making me feel better in some ways. I listen to a lot of very insane podcasts and read insane books. I'm reading this one called Parallel Universes of Self. And so the idea is, and this is how I actually see the universe, and this is what a lot of spiritual teachers say or whatever, is that the universe, we do live in the multiverse. Time does not actually exist. What we experience as time is us just traversing through billions of universes a second. And so if you want to change your life, you just have to change your belief systems and change your identity and move into a different universe. And in a way, that makes a lot of sense, because like when you think of your life and who you are, like, you know, you feel like you're stuck into this one thing and habits and routines and patterns, but all those patterns, you could instantly break them, right? You could quit your job, take out a loan, start a business tomorrow. And it might not work. You know, obviously, like, I know that's probably not a good idea if you have no business background, but maybe it's a great idea, right? But because of your belief systems, you're not going to do that. So if you can change your belief systems, you can change how you're acting, which brings me to my next point is I was at a show last night, at a comedy show last night, and man, this is the most ADHD podcast ever. Anyways, was at a comedy show last night, and there was this comic there who he worked at the Keg, and so all his friends came down to support him. Newer guy, he's done it 7 or 8 times, very nice guy. I think his name's Kevin. And one of his friends was this very cute Asian girl in the audience, and she was sort of like heckling me a bit, not heckling, just sort of talking. But you know, I was talking to them, so it was fine. And then my my 2 friends, also, if she ever listens to this, it's over. You can never tell girls you think they're cute, or else they don't like you. But that's my experience. You gotta keep them guessing, keep them on their toes. So afterwards, after the show, I was talking to my 2 friends and these 2 girls, and one of them thought another one of the audience member was cute, and she went up to him and was like, "Hey, do you want to like go play a game of pool?" And he was like, "No, I got an early night." She kind of got shut down or whatever. And so I was saying, "Oh, I think that Asian girl is really cute," and she was like, "Go talk to her." And I did not want to. This is the weird thing. Like, I get so scared of women. Like, I'm terrified of them. If I am like out and I see a girl who I think is cute, it's just like, I don't know why that's so pervasive, but it's like, it chills me to my core, right? And I did end up talking to her. But again, it's like, I went up, like, my friend was pushing me. She was like, just go talk to her. So, and like, this girl was drunk, so it was like pretty low stakes situation. And she was like, go talk to her. And I was like, oh, I'm scared. And then finally they went up, her and all her restaurant friends went up to have a smoke. And I went and talked, like, at first I was standing next to my friends and they're smoking cigars, and immediately, but like, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go talk to this girl. And so as soon as like I have this idea that I'm gonna talk to a girl I think is cute, it's like I go into the most self-conscious mode ever, and all I can think about is how I'm being perceived. And then because that's all I'm thinking about, I can't, like, the way I'm being perceived is weird. And I can't think of things to say because I'm just like, everyone's looking at you. You're a loser. What are you doing? And that I get so frozen and I hate it. Like, anytime I'm around a girl who I'm like, I actually like this girl, I think she's cute, I freeze up and self-destruct. And so I'm trying to work on that. You know, when I was a younger man, I got into pickup art or whatever, which honestly I think is one of the most misunderstood things. Obviously now it's, you know, now it's kind of progressed to this weird point where young guys are getting into pickup, but like not even to sleep with women. They're just doing it because they're insane. Like Clavicular is a perfect example. It's like looks maxing, and they will talk about frame maxing. And like in pickup and in NLP, frame is the idea that your reality is the one that's consistent. So if in your mind you think like I'm this shit, you know, like I'm the best or whatever, and then you go around some other guy and he thinks he's the best and you're a piece of shit, then whoever has the stronger frame will be the more like relaxed in that conversation, right? And so if you're talking to a guy and you have a stronger frame of who you are, then you can, like, you know, these weird internet Gen Zs call it frame maxing, where it's like being more confident than them, basically, which comes to, I think I have a very strong frame in that whenever I'm talking to a cute girl, I think I'm a loser. And that supersedes her frame, where even if she thought it was cool, because you know, if I do well on stage, it seems like I'm a confident social person. But then that's false. That's fake. That's because I'm in control of that situation. And then as soon as I get off stage, I don't know what it is, but I sort of collapse. I'm working on that. I am going to listen to this tomorrow and be like, man, you got to get it together. Stop telling the internet that you're not confident. But, that's what it is. That is what it is. I am scared of girls. I posted a clip about this, about talking about being at Winnipeg. If you listen to the podcast, yesterday I had a story about being at Winnipeg and having these girls come up to me after the show and being like, "You were really cute. We were going to flash you." So anyways, I posted that clip. And posted it on TikTok, by the way. And here's the interesting thing is like all those videos that I posted that got, 600,000 views where I'm just like, baby boomers suck. That doesn't mean anything. I posted on that one, my podcast story on TikTok, and it got 700 views. And I think it said 8% of people watched the full video. So I was like, you know what? That's like 40 people or whatever who watched this whole thing. And I was stoked. On that. And I got to say, right now, today, not really feeling the podcast, but I'm showing up, building reps. I was talking to ChatGPT yesterday because I was like, why am I doing this? What is my podcast? I talked to ChatGPT for therapy, but only in a way that is like, I can't tell anyone else these thoughts. I mean, it wouldn't matter anyways, because I don't tell anyone my thoughts. I'm a very socially closed off person. I'll tell people like sorta how I'm doing at comedy shows, but it just feels rude. Like I've always had this fear of being a burden to others. But then if you like show up and you're like, hey man, I'm having a rough time, and then aren't you like a burden? Like if someone comes up to me with that and they're like, oh, I'm really going through some stuff, I'm like, stop burdening. Well, actually, no, that's not true. I love trying to solve people's psychological problems. I love it. If someone tells me they're like, oh, I'm going through this really hard time. If I like the person, if I don't like the person, I'm like, get the hell out of here. But, maybe I should open up more. Maybe this is what I have routinely thought, I'm like, am I doing this podcast because I don't want to do the 12-step work of it? Which probably, who knows? But, yeah. Anyways, was doing some more arguing with baby boomers online on Facebook, and they're all telling me to get a job. And it's like, listen, bro, I got a job. They're so uncreative. Baby boomers, I mean, it does feel, I'm getting ratioed so hard on my anti-baby boomer posts on Facebook. For some reason, one of them is really blowing up. But baby boomers are insane. They're all like, so many of them, they have this insane idea that the reason they got ahead was worked harder. And I know I keep talking about this, but I keep arguing with them, so it keeps on being relevant in my life. And, the weird thing is like, I don't really work hard, so like but I know people of my generation do. I've just always tried to do at least the least amount of work possible to survive. And as soon as gig work really became a thing, I was right into that, because I'm like, okay, I will work the exact amount of hours I need to afford rent and food and utilities this month. And sometimes maybe I'll just put them on a credit card, because I hate but that's also the difference between the relationship that baby boomers had with work, where it's like, yeah, you got a job, and then that job was going to promote you. And if you worked hard, it meant something. If you're doing gig work, it doesn't mean anything. You just work more. Like, there's no working hard. You just work more. And I think that's most of the economy, probably. You don't work hard. You work more, and that more work doesn't get you anything. Your boss isn't like, oh, look at this person. They're really working hard. Your boss is like, hey, that person's working hard. We should hire someone else to, an outside hire to make sure we don't lose this guy working hard. I don't know. The whole economy is just garbage. And yeah. So what else? I really need some more definite topics for this fucking thing. That's what I've been realizing, because like every podcast I listen to is like a politics podcast or a self-help podcast. And so, and I'm verging on, I mean, I've listened to so much self-help. Really, I'm just trying to keep talking, but I'm also going to start interviewing more people, because I do want this podcast to be about anything. And again, what I'm trying to do is create a parasocial relationship. Kind of repeating myself here, but again, right now, this is just one of those episodes where it's like, hey, showing up and just doing it, just giving her. And I think maybe if I had less aversion to doing self-help, maybe that's what maybe, you know what? Maybe I'm going to move into a self-help podcast. Because I listen to a lot of self-help. I've read and listened to so much, and I don't know how much I apply it. You know, I'll read something, I'm like, that makes sense, got it, I'm done. But then it'll always have like exercises you're supposed to do, and I'm like, come on, man, who do you think I am? I understand the self-help. I'm not gonna work on myself, you know. I just want to reframe everything. I was listening to Michael Singer, who is this guy who wrote The Untethered Mind. Really great book. He talks about like just getting into meditation and yoga, and then sort of only caring about that because he was trying to silence the voice in his mind, or just realizing that the voice in his head he's like, well, if I'm me, but I'm still hearing the voice, then what's the voice? And it's just sort of the profound ego realization that the voice in your head is not you, right? There's a voice that never shuts up. And that's basically the source of all of our suffering. And what people do is to try to make themselves feel better, they try to change the entire world, right? They'll use law of attraction or whatever, or they'll use hard work, or they'll use like, oh, I'm going to get late or whatever. We try to manipulate the world around us to make ourselves feel better, but really the problem is our mind. And if you don't address the mind, no matter what you do, it's not going to work because the mind is right in there, right? And so he was saying that. And if that makes sense, then, hey, take that. So you just got to meditate. And I have not been meditating lately. I have been recording this podcast, and I'll be honest. I recorded the podcast, put out the podcast, did a bunch of editing stuff, and then spent about 4 hours yesterday just having an existential crisis about what it is I'm doing. But I think that's healthy. I think this creativity is stirring up. Sorry. The creativity is stirring up a lot of weird feelings, right? Because this is my thing with everything is I'll be like, I'm going to do this. I'll be like, I'm going to learn piano. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to, and I have like a book that I wrote about my manic experience. I've got like 180 pages and then I quit. I was writing screenplays for quite a while. I mean, I did finish most of those, but it's just, I'll always have these ideas. And then you always get to a point where you're like, this feels stupid. What am I doing? And instead of just pushing through that, I quit. And I think that's the reason I'm at the place I am in my life. And just doing this podcast every day, I feel like today I was thinking like, you know what? I could turn it into like an investigative journalism piece, or even just like I'm more committed now to actually just bringing guests on here. And I feel like I have something to talk about, because even this, my own process with this weird ass podcast that I'm doing, that is something I have to talk about, and just getting it out there, and then building that link in my mind where it's like, yeah, I'm a creative person who does stuff and puts it out online, and getting over, because I really don't have, because if anyone listens to this, then it's like, hey, well, you're already listening, so you must kind of be into it, right? If you got this far, you must kind of like me, right? Whereas I think, just posting clips online, every time I post a clip online, I'm like, everybody hates me. Everybody hates me so much, and they're right. I'm such a friggin' idiot, So yeah, it's turning up feelings, and really my hope with this is I keep doing it and just see what happens. Like, what would happen if I did this every day for a year? And then that will somehow, I don't know, do something. And yeah, because I'm like, is this a comedy podcast? Is this a self-help podcast? Is this an interview podcast? Right now, it's nothing. And I'm trying to get to 30 minutes so hard. You know, at first I was like 20-minute podcast every day, but somehow 30 just feels better. So what else is there to talk about? Now, this is a mental exercise. You get to a point and you go, Levi, you're stupid. What are you doing? What are you doing with your life? Yeah, and I got a ticket yesterday in the mail, red light ticket. Ran a red light. Apparently don't remember doing it. I'm usually a very careful driver. I don't speed. I don't try to run red lights. I've always thought, like, you know what? You get there when you're going. And so getting a ticket for $400 does make me want to start a violent revolution. Just getting a ticket in the mail and the government's like, hey, you owe us $400 for something that happened. No one was hurt. It wasn't a big deal, but we have a surveillance state. And so you owe us $405. Why the $5? Screw you. You know, let's burn down the country. Normally I'm like, you know what? Things are fine. Things are good. I can maintain some sort of sense of equanimity. I get one ticket and I'm like, let's burn it all down. Yeah, I'm going to go find a politician and do things that I can't even talk about on this podcast in case it ever gets monetized, but we're having enough views. I immediately fantasize about that. And, you know, I've had so many friends and usually you can tell what kind of mental headspace they're in when they talk about like how messed up the world is and how people are too brainwashed and psyop to ever like fight back. But I will let you know right now. I will always, if there's ever some sort of uprising, I'm always going to be down for the uprising. Doesn't matter what it is. You know, I think I've spent enough time in my 20s just waking up and having to go to work and hating it so much and being like, why are we doing this? I just go and give all my time to some guy. He doesn't pay me enough to live. It's terrible. And I would hate it so much. And I would just I'd look around and I'd be like, why are we still doing this? Why hasn't there been an uprising yet? Is anyone having a good time? But I think people, before the Epstein stuff, people are like, well, this is just the system. You know, you work hard, you get ahead or whatever. And it's like, that is not the system. The system is being run by maniacs. And this is my problem with right-wing people. They were like, no, you just got to trust the system. You work hard, you get ahead. And it's like, yeah, that's true to a certain extent. And I do think right-wing ideology is the proper way to base your life. Because it's like, yeah, work hard, be disciplined, all that. That's if you want to have any sort of semblance of structure in your life, you do have to have sort of a right-wing ideology. But then when you step outside your own life and go, how should we as a community embrace this? It should be to burn things. We should all be violently revolting against the system. And so it's like you can have both. And this is what I get frustrated because I think a lot of left-wing people go, the system's broken. And I'm just going to hula hoop all day. And it's like that's not an appropriate response. And so you have to have that right-wing ideology to be like, yeah, structure your life. But then once you step outside of yourself as an individual, you got to go, look, the entire system is being run by the worst pedophilic creeps imaginable. They control everything. They have all the money. And so we do have to burn things. Like, you know, I was just watching this being like, maybe I could clip this. But then I'm also thinking, will Instagram let me clip this? I'm trying to I should maybe cut the word violent. And see, now I feel like I'm really hitting my stride right at 29 minutes. So push through, and maybe this is what this is. Maybe this will just be a daily. That would be like, you know, I'm like that guy in that Black Mirror episode who just holds a knife to his throat the entire time. And it's like, oh, or a shard of glass. I could do that. And I feel like I'm getting close. I feel like I'm getting closer to figuring out what this is. So if anyone's listening, thank you. Stay tuned. And also let's do an uprising. If anyone knows where the uprising's happening, hit me up on Instagram @LeviMcCatchin. And if you're listening to this, happen to live in Winnipeg, come to the basement next weekend, March 6th and 7th. And then if you're in Calgary, come to my show I'm putting on Calgary Night Live March 14th. Did not organize the tickets for that soon enough. And as always, starting to freak out. But I'm sure it'll be fine. All right. I love you. Bye.